Alright guys, so today we're going to be ranking every single NFL team's best running back, starting at 32, going all the way down to number 1. Let's get right into it. At 32, I got Alexander Mattison of the Raiders. He has 97 carries for 320 yards at 3.3 yards per carry. He hasn't rushed for more than 4 yards per carry since his second season. And he's had a few games back in the Vikings when he was replacing Dalvin Cook, but since then he just hasn't been good at all. Like last season, I don't think he had a rushing touchdown all year as a starting running back for the Vikings. 31, I got Rico Dowdle. He has 134 carries, 600 yards, 4.5 per carry, and 1 touchdown. So this is a guy who actually has been a lot worse than his stats. Their offensive line is just so good that he's able to get that many yards per carry, even though when you actually watch the games, it does not feel like he's playing that good. At 30, got Javonte Williams. Currently, he has just 3.6 yards per carry, and he's just fallen off since he had the injury. Even though even before the injury, he never had more than 4.5 yards per carry, and he's never been much in the receiving game. At 29, this one's kind of sad. It's Nick Chubb. He's fallen off so hard this season. I mean, he's 82 carries for 243, which is just 3 yards per carry. I mean, before this season, he's never had under 5. This is his worst season by a mile, and he's looked just awful. Jerome Ford sort of outperformed him, but I just decided Nick Chubb's been getting most of the snaps. I'm going to put him on here instead. At 28, I got Ramondre Stevenson, who currently has 671 yards and 3.7 yards per carry. However, the big knock on him is he has 5 fumbles already this season, and I believe he's lost 3 of them, which leads all running backs. He just hasn't been able to provide a spark for the Patriots offense, but to be fair to him, their offensive line is awful. And at 27, I got DeAndre Swift. He currently has 704 rushing yards and 3.9 yards per carry. He's been pretty good in the receiving game, which is what propping him up from some other players that are just below him. However, he's just not been what the Bears paid for. They paid for a really good running back one to help boost their rookie quarterback and give him a nice balanced offense. But they've been much better in the past this year, and then they just haven't had a run game all year. At 26, I got Najee Harris. For me, past 2 seasons, he's looked a lot better. I felt like he was super overrated his first 2 seasons, but he's been getting a lot better. 824 yards, 4 yards per carry. He's very fun to watch in the open field. He can jump over them, run over people. He's pretty athletic too. I just really like watching him. At 25, I probably got the most overrated running back in the NFL. I got Kenneth Walker. I've never seen so much hype for somebody averaging 3.7 yards per game. I mean, he's pretty good in the receiving game, and he's good once he gets to open field, but his vision is just not that good. At 24, I got James Conner. He currently has 773 yards, 4.2 yards per carry, and he's a very powerful runner. He hasn't been quite as good as he was last season or the season before. However, he's still been a solid running back and has earned himself that extension that he got a couple weeks ago. At 23, I got Tank Bigsby. I picked him over ETN because he's just so much better. ETN's fallen off so hard this season. But Bigsby, last season, 2.6 yards per carry. He looked horrible. For my money, he might have been the worst player in the NFL. Like, he was that bad. However, this season, he has 102 carries for 547 yards at 5.4 yards per carry. That is really good. Early in the season, I think he was over 7 before he was starting. Like, he was playing so good. At 22, I got Tyrone Tracy, who I actually predicted to start by midseason for the Giants, and I was right. 125 carries for 619 yards, 5 yards per carry. That's so good. The Giants' interior of their offensive line is just awful. So him running for 5 yards per carry is incredibly impressive. If he can do this at a high level for even longer, he'll definitely continue to move up in the rankings. The crazy part about him is that he was a receiver in college, transferred to running back his last season in college, and he's just been so good in the NFL at running back. At 21, I got J.K. Dobbins, who's battled so many injuries, which really sucks because he's such a good player, especially when he's healthy. Like, this season, 4.8 yards per carry. He has 766 yards. Really helped this Chargers offense, who last season did not have a run game. But he just got hurt again, so it's hard to know how he'll come back from the injury. At 20, you got another guy who's injury prone. I got Aaron Jones. It really sucks to see. He gets hurt every season. I'm a Packers fan. I've watched him for years, just getting hurt every year. Multiple times we had to put in A.J. Dillon. It was horrible. He's now doing that for the Vikings, and he's a huge fumbler. He fumbles all the time. It's so frustrating. However, he's a good running back when he doesn't fumble or get injured, as he's averaging 4.5 yards per carry and his 820 rushing yards. At 19, I got Brian Robinson Jr. He's really broken out this season. 4.6 yards per carry for a guy who's been inefficient his first 2 seasons. And he's 8 touchdowns. He's been able to score so much in this Commanders offense, which has been very high scoring itself. and he's been able to carve out a really nice role for himself. At 18, I got Chase Brown. He's been very good for the Bengals after they lost Joe Mixon. He's actually been better than Joe Mixon when he was on the Bengals, at least. Obviously, now with the Texans, he's been loads better. But his efficiency was better than Joe Mixon was. And he's so good in the receiving game. He's really good at running real routes and on improv plays where, like, Burrow's running out of the pocket. He's actually getting open, like, deep. Like, most running backs, they just run, like, screens, underneath routes. It's just like he's so refined in the receiving game. At 17, I got Tony Pollard, one of the more underrated running backs in the NFL. He has 835 yards at 4.3 per carry. He's so good for such a bad offensive line that they have. I mean, they have Skoronski and really just no one else on that offensive line. He's running into like the worst offensive line in football, and he's still able to play at a pretty good level. At 16, I got Isaiah Pacheco. He's been hurt all season, but last season, 4.6 yards per carry, nearly 1,000 yards. And he's been very good. The Chiefs run the ball a lot more than you think, and this is why, because they have such a good running back in Pacheco. At 15, I got another rookie, Bucky Irving. 133 carries for 735 yards, 5.5 yards per carry. You compare this to like Rashad White, who maybe has 3 yards per carry. He's just been outperforming him so much. I wish he got more volume, especially early in the season when it was clear he was a better running back. He's just put together such a good season. At 14, I got one of the running backs who broke out, Chuba Hubbard. He was so awful the past 2 seasons, but this season he just turned into like a superstar. Like 4.9 yards per carry, 1.2 yards over expected per carry. That is really high. I mean, like even getting like 0.3 is really good. So getting 1.2 is amazing. 919 yards. I really like his vision. I think that's where he excels. Since he's not that good of an athlete, he's able to see where he needs to cut to, and he's actually probably top 5 vision in the league right now. At 13, I got Alvin Kamara. This season, he's averaging 4.3 yards per carry, has nearly 900 rushing yards, but this is where it gets crazy. He has 79 targets in the receiving game, 450 receiving yards. He's so good after the catch, but one of the reasons why he's getting so many receiving volume is just because Derek Carr, he's scared of pressure. Like, he just checks it down every chance he gets. I mean, with a guy like Kamara, it kind of makes sense. At 12, I got Bijan Robinson. He currently has 885 rushing yards, 4.6 yards per carry, and he has less yards per carry than his backup Tyler Algier, who I really like. I wish they gave Tyler Algier more volume. This offensive line is so good, and I think Bijan's a bit overrated since, look at what Algier is doing with this offensive line, even more than Bijan. And Bijan's like the special athlete. I feel like he should be able to do more. At 11, I got Breece Hall. He's kind of fallen off a bit this season, only on just under 700 yards with 4.2 per carry. He was the top 5 running back last year for me, and he has 5 fumbles now this year. He just hasn't been able to do much. I mean, I don't know how he was able to be better when they had Zach Wilson, since most teams were just stacking the box. But now with Aaron Rodgers, he's just even worse. At 10, I got Jonathan Taylor, who's still kind of recovering from the past 2 seasons, where before that he had like 1,800 yards. He hasn't been that guy since. But still, 804 yards, 4.3 yards per carry. He's just an athletic guy who can run you over. Just really, really talented player. At 9, I got James Cook. He's one of the more underrated running backs in the league, and Ray Davis too, his backup. However, he's just not that good in like pass blocking department, which just got him taken off the field. And in the receiving game, he's not that good. That's one reason why he hasn't been able to play most of the snaps, and why like even Ty Johnson's checking in for the receiving game. It just really stinks. But James Cook, 703 yards, 4.7 yards per carry, and he's been a very big part of that Bills offense. At 8, I got Devin Achane. He only has 4.1 yards per carry, but he has 429 receiving yards and 6 receiving touchdowns. So good in the receiving game. His efficiency went down a lot from last season, as he's been the workhorse this season, which clearly you kind of want like a guy to split carries with him to get his full potential, but he's still a very good running back. At 7, I got Kyren Williams. He's also fallen off a little bit, definitely a top 3 running back last season, but he has 222 carries, 926 yards at 4.2 per carry, and 10 touchdowns. And in my opinion, he has the best vision in the league. Like short yardage situations, he's not that powerful, but he'll find the gap and slip into it. It's so impressive how he's able to get so many yards despite being so unathletically gifted. At 6, I got Jahmyr Gibbs, who's currently at 6 yards per carry and nearly 1,000 yards, 1.2 yards per carry over expected, which is the same as Chuba Hubbard, which, as I said, is extremely impressive. He's also very good in the receiving game. Kind of stinks that he's splitting carries with David Montgomery. However, after we've seen with Achane, these faster, smaller running backs might want to be the sort of change of pace guy to have their best their best year, it would be nice to see how he could do as his own standalone running back. At 5, I got Josh Jacobs. He has 221 carries for 987 yards, 4.5 per carry, and he has 8 touchdowns this season. He's been so good for that Packers offense. He's providing the consistency to the backfield that they didn't have with Aaron Jones, as he was consistently getting hurt. I really like the backups for Green Bay as well, as they've been able to come in and change the pace, but Josh Jacobs is able to run at such a high level and with so many carries, maintain the consistency. At 4, I got Joe Mixon, a guy who I think has really broken out this season. I didn't really like him that much on the Bengals, but he's been such a key piece to the Texans' offense this season. Currently has 887 yards, just 4.3 yards per carry, but you wouldn't know that watching his games, and he's 11 touchdowns, and he's really good in the receiving game. At 3, I got Christian McCaffrey. It's a bit of a weird one since he just got hurt. He's out for the whole year, obviously. He might even be out for part of next year, I'm not sure. Hopefully this injury doesn't linger, just because he was such a good player last season. 2,500 plus total yards, 21 total touchdowns, and 5.4 yards per carry. That's just bonkers, and he's easily the best receiving back in the league, and I believe he could totally just go out and play slot receiver if he really wanted to. At 2, I got Derrick Henry, who's had an amazing season. I mean, it's being a little bit overshadowed by Saquon, but 240 carries, 1,400 yards, 5.9 yards per carry, 13 touchdowns, and he has 420 yards over expected, which is the most ever in his career, and he still has 4 games left. He's been such a consistent threat for that Ravens offense, and he's been able to open even more stuff in the passing game for Lamar Jackson, as he's having an even better year than last year when he won MVP. And finally, at number 1, this shouldn't shock anybody, it's Saquon Barkley. 246 carries, 1,500 yards, 6.1 per carry, and 11 touchdowns. 11 touchdowns is very impressive for this Eagles offense, where you get Jalen Hurts every time it's within the 3. It's just sneak. So it's super impressive to get double-digit touchdowns on the Eagles. I think Swift might have gotten 4, 5, 6 last season. 11 with 4 games left is very impressive. 452 yards over expected. But that's even more than any season in his career, and he's an MVP candidate right now. I think he should be the favorite. He's carrying this Eagles offense. And that's all for today's video. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment what players you think I should have had higher or lower. And see you next time.